Alright, so welcome to Cyber Defense. This week we're going to be going over MySQL databases in Linux. Um, so, have any of you guys ever worked with databases before? Like Access or MySQL or anything like that? I know you have. Well, databases are a good way to store information. Um, and so, a lot of websites have databases as the back end, meaning like a lot of information for a website is stored in the database itself. And a lot of applications, like business applications, they'll use a database on the back end because a database is much faster at accessing information than if it was just like stored in a file or an Excel spreadsheet. So that's what we're going to be looking at. Specifically in Linux, one of the most used, and it's a free one, is called MySQL. So it's just MySQL. So we're going to install and configure that today. And then Friday, we're going to install a program called OS Commerce. It's a e-commerce website that you hook into a MySQL database. And it's kind of like a pre-made website where all you got to do is make items. You can like upload pictures of the items and set prices, and then you can actually tie it into PayPal, and you can sell stuff on it. And this is an e-commerce website that they typically use in cyber defense competition. So if they use the same one, then you'll already have experience with it. And if they don't, the basics of it will be the same. So first thing, let's go ahead, right click on your desktop and open up a terminal. And remember, our installer is yum, so I'm going to do a yum search MySQL. I'm actually going to make this bigger. Your VM? Alright. Let's see. There we go. So you typed in, this is what you typed in? Yum search MySQL? Then you can press Control C and it should like quit whatever it was doing. You just restarted the VM? Oh, really? Okay, so it's coming back up. Alright. So you can see we get the results. There's a lot of MySQL packages here. And the one that we want is MySQL-server. You can ignore the dot like i686. That just means it's for a 32-bit client, which is because these are 32-bit VMs we're using. If it was 64-bit, it would say x86_64. But if you don't type that out, like when you're doing a yum install, it'll just assume whichever one your operating system is. So let's do yum install MySQL-server. And so it's actually going to end up installing 4 things: the server, the client, and then a couple of Perl modules. These are modules so that in Perl programs you could write some code to actually hook into a MySQL database if you wanted to. So we're just going to hit Y and enter, and it's just going to install those things for us. Alright. So now do a cd/ etc/init.d. So we're going to move, let me move this up for you. It's a little easier to see. Alright, and if you type a ls there, you can see quite a few different programs. These are all the services that you have on your computer. So on this computer we have HTTPD, which is a web server. We have NTPD, which is Network Time Protocol, so we could start that up. We've got SSHD, so that's our SSH server. And to manipulate these, you use the service command. So you can do service SSHD, and I'll just hit enter, and it'll tell you your options are start, stop, restart, reload, force reload. I guess that's conditional restart, try restart, and status. So you can do, for example, service SSHD status, and it'll tell you that it's running, and it'll tell you what the process ID is of it. So we're going to do service MySQLD status, and it tells us that it stopped. So Yum installed it for us, but it's not started. So we're going to go ahead and start that up. And it's going to go through some initial stuff, but the end result is it should be up and running for you. So now if we do a service MySQLD status, we should get that it's running, and we should have a process ID. So that means our MySQL server is running now. You typed MySQLD. Yeah, you can tell I've had a typo before, many a time. Alright, so we got our database running. We haven't made any databases on it. It's got the default stuff that it uses for like user management and all that. So let's see. What we're going to do is we're going to set the password, because right now there's no password on it. So the command you can use is MySQL admin dash u for root. That means we're logging in as the user root, and we're going to say password, and you do a single quote password. So we're going to set our password to password. So now we should be able to log into our MySQL database with a password. Did your VM come back up for you, Chris? Alright, cool. Alright. So what you're going to type is MySQL -u root -p. And what that does is that MySQL is the client. So remember when we installed the server, it installed the client? Well, MySQL is the client. We're logging in as the user root. And you can type the password on the command line, but a lot of people don't like to do it because Linux saves your command history. So if you type, like, you could do it like this, and it would automatically log in. But if you just leave P and don't put the password, it'll ask you for it, and it won't show it. So that way, if somebody looks at your command history, they won't be able to get your password. So it'll tell you enter the password, and we'll just say password. And so now you should have MySQL prompt. And so we're inside of MySQL, and this is where you can execute your MySQL commands. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a show databases, and you have to put a semicolon at the end. So if you've ever taken Java, you can get used to it again. So we can see we've got information schema, we've got MySQL, and we've got test. So these are databases that it installs by default. So let's see. Alright. Next thing we want to do is we want to make a database. And I'm using a little guide here, so we're going to do the Flintstones for our databases. So, yeah, show databases semicolon. If you don't type the semicolon, it's going to bring you to the next line. You can continue making a longer command over multiple lines like that, but you can just type the semicolon and press enter, and it'll like assume it's the end of the command. It just got all jacked up. Yeah. So yeah, the MySQL command prompt is like, it's a little different than the Linux command prompt. So you have to kind of get used to it. So let's see. It's create database bedrock. And semicolon. So now if we do show the databases, oops, I did it. Now we got bedrock. Alright, so now if you want to manipulate that database, the command to start using it is use. So I'm going to say use bedrock. Alright, and it'll tell you database changed. Alright. Next thing I'm going to do, let's show tables. And it says empty set. That means there's nothing there because we haven't made any tables yet. But that's how you would see the tables in a database if there was one there. So, alright, next thing we want to do, is we want to make a database, and we want it to have 3 fields. We're going to do name, let's see, department, and job title. This marker's not very dark. Man, this one's not either. There we go. Alright. So logically, the way that this is going to look, in a table, it's kind of like this. And so we're going to have name, department, and job title. Alright? And we're going to call this table employee. And so these things right here are fields. Alright? And then we'll have data down here. And so and this is called records. And if you think about it this way, a field is kind of like the vertical stuff at the top, and a record is the horizontal stuff, and that's all the data that we're going to be making. So when we make our table, we have to tell it the name of the field and also what type of data we're going to be putting in the field. One thing MySQL comes with is something called varchar, and it's really nice. I guess it's best not to use it for a huge database if you know exactly what you're going to be putting in a field, because varchar is probably going to use more memory and it's not going to be as fast as something. But if you're not going to have a huge database, it doesn't really matter. So varchar will let you put anywhere between 0 and however many characters you specify as the max. Alright, so I'm going to show you the table create command. So we're going to, and this one's going to be kind of long, so we're going to do create table employee. Alright, and open the parentheses, and this is going to be all of our fields. We're going to do name, and it's going to be a varchar, and we're going to allow up to 40 spaces in it. Then we do a comma. We're going to do department. We'll do a varchar of 40, comma, job title, and we'll do a varchar of 40. And then after that, you have to do another parentheses to close the first one that you open, and then do the semicolon to end the command. Let's see. What did I make? Oh, yeah. So you cannot make a varch. There we go. So you should get query OK. Now, if you show tables, you should have employee, so as a table inside of Bedrock. Let me turn this off for you. Alright, next thing you can do, you can describe a table. So I'm going to describe employee, and it'll show you the information for it. We've got 3 fields with name, department, job title, and we've got, each of them are varchar 40. It'll tell you if it's null, if it's the key, what the default of that record is, just all that information. Alright, so remember, so far we've made a database and we've made a table in the database called employee. So now it's ready to hold information, basically. Alright, so next thing we're going to do, we're going to start putting some data in it. So we're going to do insert into employee, values, open parentheses, and you got to do a single quote. I'm going to do Fred space, or actually a comma, query worker, rock digger. Alright, so you should get 1 row affected. Alright, and let's do another one. You can press up and it'll give you your last command, and I'm just going to use my arrow keys. I'm going to edit this to Wilma and finance and analyst. And we'll do one more just so we got enough data here. We'll do Barney, sales, and neighbor. Okay. So now we should have this data inside of our table. But if you do a describe table, it's not going to show you all of this information. So in order to look at what's inside of this table, you have to do what's called a query. Have you guys ever heard of like a SQL query? It's basically just a command saying what information you want to pull from the database. So you tell it like what database and what table you want to pull from, and like what fields you want to pull, and then you can filter it as well. So we're going to do select star from employee, and that means select everything from employee. And that should work. And just type a semicolon and then hit enter. So now we see all of the data that's in our database. And that's just going to show everything. So if you've got like a 1,000,000 line database, it's going to print it all out. And yes, it takes a while to print 1,000,000 rows. I've done it before. Another cool thing you can do on a query, let's say you want to just make sure that your data was working and you did it right. You could do limit to, for example, and it's going to show you the first 2 rows. Or if you've got like a 1,000,000 line database and you want to show the first 10, you could do that to like see if it's working correctly. And another thing you can do is instead of selecting star, you should be able to do select name, and it should show us the name field. It'll show us everything that's in there. You could do select name, comma, department, and it'll show us name and department. Or you can just do department only. So you can show individual fields in your query. Let's see. So what we could do is we could select star from employee, and that again, that's going to select everything, right? But let's say we want to search our database for a record. So I'll have to make sure the syntax is right. It's been a little while since I've done it. But select star from employee where name equals Fred. Let's see if that's it. It might be the actual equal symbol. Do you remember, Rushi? Yeah, that's it. So if you want to search and you want to return the whole record where the name is Fred, that would be the command you would do. Yeah.
Is it case specific?
It is.
If you had like Fred Jones, Fred...
Yeah, so if I would have done a capital F, oh, I guess it's not. Maybe varchar is not case specific.
What does varchar stand for?
Variable character. So that's the data type.
If you put in, like you were saying, department equals query, will it show you query worker? Do you have to have query worker too?
Let's see. I'm not sure. I think it has to be. I think it has to match it exactly. So where department equals query. Yeah, empty set. If I type in worker, yeah, we get the record. I think you might be able to say contains. Let me see, MySQL query. Let's see. I'm getting the right thing here. That's a good question. Can you look that up for me, Rushi? Or anybody? I believe there is a MySQL syntax where you can do if it contains something.
It says dot contains.
Ah, all right.
Like,
Department dot contains query. I think that's a program, so we have to like
console parameter.
do like this maybe. Yeah, I think there's a way to do it, but we'd have to look it up. Um,
Can you try R like? I've heard of it, but
Try what?
R like.
R like?
I'm not sure if they wrote that on there.
Like this?
Yeah, without the. Actually, no, leave the quote thing. Maybe parentheses.
Like this?
I'm assuming they wrote it.
Oh. Alright. But anyways, yeah, there's you can look up MySQL like SQL query syntax and you should be able to find it. What's cool about MySQL is like SQL is a query language. I think it actually stands for standard query language or structured query language. Um,
Oh, it's like, except you need to have your department like whatever,
oh, where
like whatever the yeah, and then get rid of the parentheses.
like this?
Yes, did you try that yet?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, lies.
Yeah, it's structured query language. So basically, SQL is a language. You've got MySQL is one of your servers for it. I don't know if you've ever heard of MSSQL. That's another server for SQL. Then there's Oracle. That's a pretty big one. Oracle databases use SQL. And those are probably the biggest three that I know of.
Alright, last try. Could you try percents in between or before and after work?
All right, like this.
Yep.
Hey, nice.
Quotations and percents.
Or the
Does it say
percents.
anything being said?
The percents ignore.
Everything before and after.
Yeah.
Okay, so you use the percent to tell it to ignore everything before and after, or to allow other things before and after worker.
Exist.
Okay, so if we did query, it should bring back the same record. Yeah, nice. Well, there you go. So there's how you search within a field for a record. Awesome. All right, let's see. Last thing I'm going to show you is making a user for MySQL. So what we're going to do, again, we're going to show the databases. And you see we got this database MySQL. And we're going to do use MySQL. And you can see database changed, so that's good. We're going to do a show tables. And you can actually see got quite a few tables there. And this is, so like MySQL itself is a MySQL database inside of MySQL. So yeah, it's SQLception. So this is like how you change a lot of your settings for MySQL. So what we're going to do is we're going to, alright, we're going to do insert into user, and we're going to insert into the host, user, password, and select underscore privileges, but it's priv. Alright, and that's not the whole command. So we're telling it where we're going to put this information. Then we're going to do values, and we're going to leave just empty quotes for hosts. That basically means use this host. Then the next one, that's the user. What username do y'all want to make? Name it. What? I can't understand the words you're saying. Oh, Tyrone. Alright. So we'll do Tyrone. Do a comma. And we'll do password, open parentheses, and we'll make this password, we'll just make it pass so it's shorter. It'll be something different. And then you gotta close that parentheses, and then just do Y for select privileges. Ooh, I missed a T there. And I said Mr. T. Alright, so we should have insert into user, host, user, password, select privilege, and the values we're putting in empty set for host, Tyrone for user, password is going to be pass, and then Y. Alright, so we got one row affected. Alright, next thing you have to do whenever you work with privileges, you have to do flush privileges. Like that. Alright, and we want to grant Tyrone privileges on our Bedrock database. So we're going to say grant all privileges on Bedrock dot star. So that means every table in our Bedrock database. We could say Bedrock dot employee because that's our only table that we have. But if you had more than one table, then this is how you could do it. And we're going to say to Tyrone. And we're going to flush privileges. And then we're going to quit out of MySQL. Alright. Next thing we need to do is we need to reload MySQL so it gets all the new users and passwords and all that stuff. So we're going to do a MySQL admin reload. Let's see. Oh. Well, we can just do a service MySQLD restart. And that'll get the same effect. Daemon. That's what like services are called in Linux. It's like DAEMON. And so whenever you see like a D at the end of a service on Linux, that usually means it's like a service, like a server. You know what I mean? Alright, so let's see if we can log in. I'm not sure if this is going to work because we may have to give them login privileges, but we'll do MySQL-U Tyrone-P. See if we can log in.
So restart it with service, MySQL D,
Restart.
restart.
hmm Is it restarting for you? Did you put a space between each word?
Yes.
Is it saying failed?
You have an error in your syntax.
Oh,
You're not in
you need to quit out of MySQL. Yeah, that's a Linux command. So just type quit, semicolon.
now you know you leave it.
Alright, let's see. Alright. I wonder why it didn't ask us for a password. We'll have to look that up. Huh?
So restart. Can I get to it?
It didn't ask me. I just typed.
So next time can I get
Let me try it again. MySQL -u Tyrone -p. Oh, did I type it in? It didn't the first time, but now it is.
That's what I got too.
Hmm.
Which we didn't just hit enter. Yes, if you hit enter, that's what you get.
Yeah. Well, how did it let me in? Oh, I didn't type. I didn't enter a password, did I?
No.
Oh. So there's no password. Interesting. Maybe we did something wrong on that. We'll have to look at it. Alright, so if I do a show databases. Nice. Well, I guess that's good. We should have Bedrock. I'll have to check out how to do that. I don't recommend doing all these privileges from the command line anyways. I'd usually do table manipulation, but there's some nice front ends for MySQL that we're going to take a look at Friday. PHP MyAdmin is one of them. There's a MySQL admin program that you can install in Linux, and then make all this stuff a lot easier. But I wanted you to see installing MySQL and how to do it from command line. Can you get ready to stop the video, Chris? Alright. Let's see. Stop it in 1, 2, 3.